It is Solidarity Wednesday. This is the day where we have conversations about how we can make sure our movement is not divided, but united, that we have different allies come on. We have conversations about movement building, what stands in the way of our movement, what kind of red flags we should be looking out for, what we can learn from our allies, what we can learn from each other, and how we can all amplify each other towards a common goal, which is, of course, to make sure that we have a more just, equal society that is not, completely dictated by capital. We have the one and only Benjamin Dixon, who's the host of the Benjamin Dixon Show here. And of course, this is a fun one, Rep Rab, who is a representative in Pennsylvania. Look at him. He's got his little his little pin on right now. Of course, Rep Rab represents the 200th district. You're very official. All right. Are you official? Because we have rules where I can't talk about certain things with you. Can we talk politics?
Yes. We can talk politics today.
There we go.
I'm not on my government laptop. Yes,
there it is.
It's a very serious firewall. Hey,
how are you?
Good to see you. Hey, good to see you. All is well.
So I want to start off with something. I think that folks are starting to understand what the serious and the importance of local organizing means. They're starting to pay more attention to these state races. Of course, we're in a redistricting year. We just got our lines in New York. They're not completely confirmed yet, but it looks like that's where we're going. Pennsylvania is like one of those states that's a conundrum. I think folks think, oh, it's totally Democratic. And then you listen to Rep Rab and you're like, what is going on there? But let's start off with this race that's heating up and like how I think a lot of folks know who John Fetterman is and Connor Lamb. There is this race right now in Pennsylvania for the Senate, and I did not understand this is how the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania works, which I'm sure Rep Rab will explain to us. But it's all about who's going to be nominated. There are a few people who are running, so let's play this clip and then dive in.
A closer look at Pennsylvania this afternoon, where Democrats have declined to rally behind one candidate in a key Senate race. It's a lack of endorsement for Democratic Congressman Connor Lamb. He's been working to try and get support from party insiders, and the stakes are really high for Democrats in this race. The Philadelphia Inquirer points out, quote, national Democrats are watching Pennsylvania's Senate race closely. It is one of the most competitive in the country, likely their best chance to flip a seat in the chamber, and it could help determine which party has the majority after this year. I want to bring in now Julia Taruso, a staff writer at the Philadelphia Inquirer, my hometown paper, who's been following the story very closely. We're so glad to have you on, Julia. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much.
So talk about what went down for Congressman Lamb, because he still got a lot of votes, right, from state Democrats, but he didn't hit that 2/3 threshold that would have triggered a formal endorsement, right?
Right. So Congressman Lamb went in needing 2/3 of a room of about 300 party insiders. These are really active, hyper-engaged Democrats who are paying attention to the primary 3.5 months out. And he worked hard to kind of try to call these members up, send mailers to their places, their houses. And he came close. He got about 60% or so, but fell short of that 2/3.
Okay, so that's a basic overview of how this works. But there are other people in this race. I'm gonna go to
never know it.
Yeah. So
you'd never know it.
The media.
I mean, surprise, surprise, but corporate media is like, why didn't Connor Lamb secure it? Which is a leading question. You would think that he is the only viable candidate in the race. There are others. I actually just endorsed Malcolm Kenyatta. Malcolm Kenyatta is a second-term state representative from Philadelphia, represents one of the poorest districts in the entire state. He's been an advocate for social justice issues since day one, and he's getting short shrift. He is both Black and queer. He's the first out rep of color in state history, and is a very compelling candidate. But here's the thing: the way they said it was presumed that Connor Lamb should have locked this in because of his national exposure as a conservative Democrat from Western PA. But here's the thing: his whole premise is that he's won before. He's won over Republicans in pink districts, right? In pink areas. But if black people don't come out in Philly, it doesn't matter how good he is out west. It's not going to be enough.
Learn that with Hillary.
Exactly. Well, we've learned it with,
right?
But we've learned it with everybody. We learned it with Katie McGinty, who ran for Senate before, as the most expensive at the time, the most expensive senatorial campaign in U.S. history. She lost by, I think, less than 0.5%. But if you don't activate the base, and you are a Democratic candidate statewide, you will lose. You will lose. Yeah. So it doesn't matter how good he is in Central PA. It doesn't matter how good he is talking to Republicans if you sacrifice the base. And we just saw it in this last election cycle. We have in Pennsylvania, we have all elected judges from local all the way to state Supreme Court. And we lost 3 of the 4 of those races initially to Republicans because Democrats in Philly didn't come out. And let's put a point on it. If just black folk who are already registered just in one county of all 67 came out, all Democrats would be in those positions, right? Would be in those positions. And some of those candidates were pretty compelling and would have diversified very bench. Now, when we talk about the senatorial race, we talk about it's Connors to lose. But John Fetterman, who's our current lieutenant governor,
let's hold on that because I want to break it up, and we'll get to Fetterman in a second. Okay. Ben, I think you had a question. I saw you.
No, not really a question so much, but just an observation that it sounds like the race there is the same as in every other state. If the Democratic Party actually, ran someone who could activate the community, to activate the base, like you said, Rep. Rab, actually deliver tangibles for the black community, winning is not even a difficult thing. It's that they literally are trying to win without giving black people a reason to get up and come vote for them. And I'm just seeing that. I saw that in Georgia, right? We just see this all the way around the country. Every state we look at, it seems to be the same strategy.
Absolutely.
So Fetterman, I'm glad that you mentioned Fetterman, because then you've got the lieutenant governor who is sort of, he's endorsed by Bernie Sanders. He did endorse Bernie Sanders. In the past, he was endorsed by Bernie Sanders. I don't know about this race. He has, kind of leans to the left and populist, but he's portraying himself as like the alternative to Conor Lamb. But he's got some issues. Rep. Rao, what happened?
All right. So Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman is from York County, which is in South Central PA, but moved years ago to Braddock, which is a Rust Belt town, majority black, just outside of Pittsburgh. And he was the mayor there for a number of years. And it had a lot of gun violence, and he was doing a lot of kind of community outreach and talking about issues that a lot of white mayors don't talk about, frankly. So that kind of his claim to fame was that he was kind of like an innovative small town mayor of a majority black town. But the things that have kind of put him on the map that may be impressive in Western PA, west of the Susquehanna River, are he's pro-LGBTQ rights, he's pro-weed, legalizing weed, and he supports essentially criminal justice reform, particularly as it relates to pardons. As lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania, you oversee the pardon process. So that's your new unique substantive power as a lieutenant governor. And so those are all great issues, but they're not particularly impressive to folks who live in the greater Philadelphia area, because we've been on those issues for a long time. That's so right. While that may seem odd coming from a white politico in Western PA, which is more socially conservative, that's just like everyday news for those of us who've been, on the enlightened side of things for some time. So he doesn't distinguish himself from a Malcolm Kenyatta in that regard. What makes him viable is that he's white, and he's also been able to reach, I believe, white millennials who like that he's different. He's 6'8", he's tatted up, he wears cargo shorts, and like Tony Soprano shirts. He's like, he just does his own thing, and I think that has appeal. And we've seen how candidates, irrespective of their political ideology, get kind of support because they don't fit the mold. And I'm not saying he's like Donald Trump in terms of his politics. He despises Donald Trump, but he has that kind of like, let's try something different here. Let's go with the guy who's, a walking mountain full of tats and says stuff that most politicians don't say. And, that may appeal to a certain subset of voters, but it is not substantive enough. And also he's had issues as it relates to his race politics.
Right. So
yes.
I'm going to set that up real quick. So there's this this situation that I think, Ben, you're familiar with it. The New York Times has even touched on it, that in 2013, when Fetterman was mayor, he used a gun to stop a man named Christopher Mayaris, a black man jogging nearby, after saying he heard gunshots. And of course, the police, which is very unusual for the police, right, found no arm. The man was not armed at all as he was jogging. I mean, Ben, I want to go to you first on this, just because I think it's mind-boggling to me that that he's basically second right now, and after all of these conversations about how important the black base is in Pennsylvania, in turning out Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, the two front runners in this race, at least in the Democratic Party, and obviously it's not chosen, are two white men. One who's a corporate white congressman, and the other who is got real issues, and he's won statewide. What does this say about the party in this moment? Like, the curtain's, been pulled back.
Yeah. No, I feel like brother Rep Rab, it's been pulled back for some time. And I think it is, I'm thinking back of, I can't think of the actor's name, who was on stage with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, Harry Belafonte, when he said he's here to see if there's anything worth salvaging from the embers that is the Democratic Party. Because, let's just be real about it. In terms of strategic advantage, in terms of legislative control of houses across the country, in terms of different pieces of legislation that's being organized by ALEC and sent around the country, the Democratic Party is getting their ass whipped. And black folks who have the solution for them are oftentimes overlooked, not only overlooked, but actively worked against in favor of some of these milquetoast moderates.
Milquetoast is right. Oh my God.
Well said.
I don't know. Is he going to inspire folks?
No, well, he's not going to. I don't think he will. And his argument, because I'm a member of State Committee. State Committee is the apparatus that runs the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. And so the people who vote for endorsements for the party showed up last weekend, largely virtually. And there were only about 300 odd voters out of 13 million Pennsylvanians. So it's not really a great subset. And these folks who are party loyalists and party who are on the ground are not necessarily highly influential. The higher up the office, the less influential folks are. My neighbors, I'm a Democratic committee person in my neighborhood for 16 years. I represent 500 fellow registered Democrats, and they want to know, well, I don't know anything about Judge. Who should I vote for? Yeah. And I let them know that sort of thing. But they're not asking me who I'm voting for president. I'm not influencing them on a high level. And I may not influence. And so the higher up you get, the stronger the opinion. So these 300 odd folks in the state committee aren't necessarily going to have an outsized influence on their neighbors when it comes to things like governor, because that's also on the ballot coming up, and senator. And so what that means is Connor Lamb was making a point to party insiders that I'm someone who's proven in Trump country, right? Fetterman saying I'm proven statewide, but here's the thing: he won against an embattled incumbent Democratic lieutenant governor who was caught up in a real big mess.
Right.
So it kind of made it easier for him to get in there. It wasn't like there was a wide array of folks to choose from. He was the only viable challenger to an incumbent lieutenant governor who had really bad press and made it easy for almost anybody to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a good litmus test for how strong he is statewide, and it's certainly not a litmus test for the base in our party, which are Black folk and are disproportionately represented in the city of Philadelphia. For your viewers who don't know, Philly is a city of 1.6 million people. The next largest city in the state only has roughly 300,000, and that's Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Yeah.
And a lot of bridges, by the way, in Pittsburgh.
A lot of bridges.
So I'm glad that Ben brought up Alec, because this is obviously the right-wing Koch brothers agenda to weaken Democrats and specifically people of color and marginalized communities has been by design, and it has coincided with Democrats just kind of thinking, well, Connor Lamb's the solution. I mean, one after another after another. But it's gotten so bad because when you look at the worst states in the country in terms of right-wing agenda, I think, we might all agree Florida might be one of the worst. Even though there's a lot of diversity in Florida. No one's going to sit there and say it's not. The South is diverse, folks. Oh my God, there is a bill right now. I don't even know what to say about this. Let's just roll this clip of the anti-woke bill coming out of the genius mindset of the Florida leadership.
Just moments ago, the Florida State Legislature finished up a hearing on what is being called the Stop Woke Act. Supporters of the bill say it's going to keep students from being made to, quote, feel discomfort, guilt, and anguished based on one's race, color, sex, or national origin. So this is just one of the latest proposals up for debate that focus on what kids are allowed to be taught in public schools. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard is outside that hearing in Tallahassee, Florida. Vaughn, you've got to tell me what's going on there, right? Because I don't understand what that even means to keep students from being made to feel discomfort, guilt, and anguish based on one's race, color, and sex. Who's the judge of that? And what about how this is going to affect, for instance, those LGBTQ students?
Right. Yasmin, what I can tell you what is happening here is that there is a direct effort by GOP legislatures here in Florida, but also around the country, to limit the speech that is allowed inside of classrooms, particularly around the conversations of race, of sexuality, and of history. The so-called Stop Woke Act that is being backed by the governor here, Ron DeSantis, part of it says that educators, they cannot lead students to feel that they, quote, bear responsibility for actions committed in the past. We'd be remiss not to note that about 200 years ago, that U.S. troops led by Andrew Jackson pushed out multiple Native American tribes from the very land here where this piece of legislation is now being debated today. But there's also another piece of legislation, HB 1557. Opponents have called this the Don't Say Gay Act here. I want to read you part of it because it's already been passed by the House Education Committee here and is waiting to go to the full House for a vote. It says in part, quote, a school district may not encourage classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity. It gives the parents the right to sue educators in school districts here. I want everybody to meet Kaylee Sandell.
Wow.
All right. Ben,
that's Pennsylvania.
This is insane. This is okay. First off, unconstitutional. Let's just be very clear that they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And I think what they're doing is they know it's unconstitutional, but it is a way to organize and keep their every single aspect engaged. Ben, I know you've covered this on your show. What have you learned about this?
I've learned honestly that people have a tendency to allow it's almost like the Trojan horse. Anybody who is foolish enough to allow the don't say gay portion of the bill to sneak in, they're letting in the entirety of it, which is don't let people feel guilty about racism. And one thing I give the Republican Party is they're masters of wedge issues. They're always going to pair issues that's going to inflame people racially, but also along the LGBTQIA lines. So they're masters at this. What you said is very true. Of course, it's not constitutional, but I do have a fear of exactly how, what's the process. They don't mind going through the courts, because they figure they're going to at least find one court that's going to side with them and at least give them another point of that rallying, organizing principle that they're using this for. So it's magnificent in terms of being a Machiavellian politician. It's insidious because of who it's willing to hurt just to get some cheap points.
And Rep, I mean, you're dealing with these folks in the legislature every single day, and I applaud you for being able to do that without losing your mind. You must have a really great meditation practice. Good thing you guys look good without it.
No.
But it's this. Okay, I don't want to lean into the Whoopi Goldberg thing because she made comments about the Holocaust, which were horrifying. But I was thinking, as this guy was talking about anti-gay, I know we're not supposed to use these comparisons, but the far right is mimicking a lot of the strategies that they can get away with legally by silencing voices that they don't want to speak up, whether it's because they think they're a supreme race, which, let's just be real, that is what they think they are, many of these people, or, being anti-gay. I mean, the fact that these two things can go together, and of course the anti-women component, Rep, like when you're in the legislature, talking about Alec and the folks pushing this, do you get a sense that they're just like, how does it work? Are they handed talking points? Do they have committee meetings? Who's coming up with these ideas? Uh-oh, did he freeze? I think we lost him. Whoop. I think you're frozen. You back?
Yeah.
All right. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. So yes, Alec, that is the business model of Alec. Alec provides model legislation to promote xenophobia, homophobia, patriarchy and white supremacy for corporate benefit, right? That's what they do. And so they all get these. So if you see something in Florida and they're the first, it's just a matter of days or weeks before it comes to Pennsylvania. So we have the anti-CRT bill. We have that. It hasn't come to the floor yet, and I can't wait till it does because I got some doozies just waiting for them. But they don't. So in Pennsylvania, we have a Democratic governor who will veto that, and we can sustain that veto. But they do it to exactly do what you say, which is to whip up the base, to raise money, to organize, right, to strengthen. But they go too far, which is a strategic opportunity for the rest of us. That's because right. I don't think the suburbs, particularly not the exurbs, but the suburbs, they may not have the same politics. But when it comes to stuff like they're talking about their queer daughter or son, that's getting a little too close, right?
Of course.
Right. So, and the swing voters in the most important elections are in the suburbs. And this is not something that they're interested in. They're interested in tax breaks.
Right, of course.
They're not interested in this kind of stuff. And so they are solidifying their base, but I don't think they're expanding that much to expand, frankly. But the reason this is good for us is it'll piss us off and say, oh, I probably need to get out to vote because we can't let this happen. I can't believe this is happening. And so it requires something this awful for folks who are already registered to vote to say, oh, yeah, I guess this election does matter. But it's up to those people who are part of these campaigns and elections to say, this is what's at stake. You literally will not be able to say X in the classroom. You will not be able to read these books. You will not be able to express your full selves if this bill is enacted into law. And that's a communication thing that we're not so good at in the Democratic Party, to say the least.
We got to say goodbye to Ben really quick. I hate to cut you off, but we're going to continue with Rep. Don't worry, Rep. You're sticking around. but we're going to
have at least one bald man on the show at all times. So Rep. I need you to hold it down while I get to this next.
I will, brother. I will.
Solidarity for bald men.
There it is. Nomiki, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Go check out Ben. I show up on Ben's show every Wednesday. We do in the morning on his show, the Benjamin Dixon show, and all the places. We do Solidarity Wednesday, and then back here. I missed it this morning because I had my booster. And hey guys, we are independent media. I don't know if you know that. We're independent media, and we are only able to function and survive with your help as patrons. You never know what the algorithm is going to do. One day you're making a little money on the algorithm. The next day they have completely cut you dry. We are not Joe Rogan. Sorry, guys. I'm not going to be peddling any vaccine conspiracy theories anytime soon. So as a result, we really rely on Patreon. So if you are not already and you love this show and you have a little bit of extra money and you're willing to be part of our Patreon community, we can do more. We can have a lot more fun. In fact, in the next month or so, we're going to be announcing some new things that patrons will exclusively get. And trust me, they are fun. Go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. If you're already a patron, thank you so much. You make this show run. If you are already a patron and want to up it, we're always grateful. And sometimes, if you're able to do so, that's able to cover folks who can no longer afford to be patrons or having a tough time right now. And if you are, please email us at thenomikishow@gmail.com. We're always working things out. Got lots of different options here. You get mugs, you get bags, you get stickers, all sorts of swag, and of course, special events and conversations, exclusive conversations. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show.